regarding a fortune, cornucopia. Maybe she, she's coming out in the reverse as the privileged lady, this Queen of Wands. And she is probably showing up as a solid offer. But by her being in the reverse, she's probably not she's probably not issuing any solid offers with her being in the reverse. And then the Seven of Wands, it speaks of protection, you know. And then we got that body cam message on the card. So I'm assuming that, she may be trying to present a solid offer to someone about, something that was caught on body cam. But this offer that she may be presenting is actually gathering flies around it. And this offer may be due to her being trapped in fear. And maybe she needs protection from something, because when that Seven of Wands comes out in the upright, it does speak of protection. And maybe she doesn't have any protection, and that's why she's trapped in fear. And she's also trapped in fear because maybe there's some type of video evidence, some type of visual proof, that may have her trapped in fear. Something that was caught on camera. And it may be dealing with something, regarding a fortune, someone's cornucopia. She may be trapped in fear about this and not having any protection regarding the matter. Something that's gathering flies, and it's even, supposed to be a solid offer. And I'm assuming that, it is going to be a solid offer that she's probably trapped in fear about, because we do get the fortune card right with that in the first row. So whatever she's trapped in fear about, and it's probably, due to her perfume, maybe some people are just starting to become aware of her actually being a not so privileged lady, coming out in the reverse. And also the Queen of Wands comes out in the reverse. So she shows up as the Queen of Wands. And the not so privileged lady is what she comes out as is in this first row. And it's speaking of her not having any protection. She's trapped in fear about that. And she also may be worried about some type of evidence, some type of visual, like, a recording that may have been captured. And then next we have the King of Pentacles coming out in the reverse in that second row. And we got the card that says seen clear, but it did come out in the reverse. So something was not seen regarding this Queen of Wands. I'm assuming that this King of Pentacles was not seeing some things clear, because it says on the card, if you want a thing long enough, and then you don't. So I'm assuming that maybe, he's in the reverse, and he's actually been not able to see some things clear, because this card came out in the reverse as well. The seen clear. So something he was blind to, probably regarding this Queen of Wands in the reverse, coming out as the privileged lady. And she's trapped in fear because she's lost her protection, or she's worried about, not being protected. And, we also get the Milady card coming out in that second row, right with this King of Wands. So one of these two individuals are probably dealing with an illness also that maybe have them trapped in fear and feeling unprotected. And then we get the Triumph card coming out also in that second row. Along with the expectation, she's expecting a victory, because we do get this both in the same second row. The expectation of a triumphant victory is what she's in expectation of. Her and probably this King of Pentacles in the reverse are in expectation of triumph, because they are blind to some things. They're not able to see some things, probably regarding this illness and disease that they may both be carrying. Or at least one of these individuals is coming out on top of this King of Pentacles, this illness and disease. And this illness and disease may have something to do with the judgment that has come upon from the courts, because we get that judgment with the message of the courts on it, you know. So they may be trapped in fear because they don't have any protection, you know, when it's dealing with the court. And probably because something was captured on some type of a video footage. But they were in expectation of a victory in this court. That they may still be in expectation of a victory. Currently, right now, expecting a victory because they're blind. They're blind to something that is going on in this court. They're blind to the fact that judgment has been called upon this court. That's what they haven't been able to see. Speaking of this King of Pentacles and this privileged lady coming out as the Queen of Wands. Judgment has come upon the situation regarding this courthouse, that they've been in expectation of a victory down at this courthouse. And then next we get the World card coming out in that third row, which means some things have come full circle upon these two characters. And we get the Pill Popper card, and it did come out in the reverse. And it has the message saying those who make the first bad move always lose the game. So maybe someone didn't make any moves, you know. Something that someone did not make a move upon that they should have. You know, maybe they should have made a move on something regarding this court, these courthouse matters. You know, which has been a topic of discussion for quite some time. And then we get this frenemy card coming out in the reverse. And so when he comes out in the reverse, that tells me that he is an enemy and not a friend, you know, because, you know, there's double meaning on this card, friend and enemy. But in the reverse, we know that that's got to for surely be an enemy. The world has come upon something dealing with this enemy at this court for not making any moves, for not making the right move, you know, in this courthouse. And we now next get the Coffin card coming right out in that third row. The coffin has come upon this enemy, and even the world has come upon this enemy regarding something that they failed to initiate or something that they failed to do in court. There's been a death to it. There's been a coffin that's been brought upon the situation. And then it's going to be bringing an emotional loss whenever they get this information or whenever this revelation is brought upon them. Because remember, in this second row, they weren't able to see. They were blind to some things regarding this victory that they're in expectation of at the court. But when this card comes in the reverse, this Seen Clear card, then that directly speaks of somebody being blind to something regarding this judgment. They're blind to the judgment that's being called upon them in this courthouse. Absolutely blind to that with this King of Pentacles. And they may even be blind to the fact that there's some type of illness or disease that has come upon the both of them, or at least this King of Pentacles has some type of a disease that he's blind to, or that he's choosing not to see, because that card says it's seen clear, but it's in the reverse. So maybe he's choosing not to see things clear, regarding this courthouse, regarding his health, and regarding his lack of protection. He's lost his protection. And these things have this individual, particularly this Queen of Wands, is coming out as being trapped in fear due to a fortune that she was, in expectation of. She didn't see things. She was blind to some things going on regarding this judgment. She was blind to some things. They were both blind to some things going on regarding this judgment from this courthouse, and also regarding some type of an illness that this King of Pentacles may be up under. And he shows up, they both show up as enemies. And the world has come upon this actual, no movement, no type of, because it says those who make the first move. And with it in the reverse, they didn't even make any moves. They made no moves. And whenever we get that seen clear card coming out right with the Axon body cam card, which is coming out on top of the Ten of Pentacles in the upright, I'm assuming that, whatever actions that this world came upon, because we do get this world card right on top of that Ten of Pentacles, which, it's in the upright. So I'm assuming that that's just trying to say that someone was, using that webcam for something, that may, have them trapped in fear at this point. And they may be even going through an emotional loss due to something that was captured on video web, or on a phone, or some kind of a camera captured something. And it brought the world upon the situation, that they were making their money on. I'm assuming that this was how they were getting their money, and the world came upon it, and the coffin came upon it. This frenemy. Because next we get the card of the Empress in the reverse, coming out in that fourth row, with the card of obstruction, which means someone is preventing something from happening. It says if they don't open after 3 knocks, don't wait. So this Empress in the reverse has been, let's see, because we got the privileged lady, and then we also had the Queen of Wands in that first row. And then next we did get this King of Pentacles in the reverse. And now we have an Empress in the reverse. And it's probably due to an obstruction. I'm not sure why this Empress is coming out in the reverse. And then we get the card of the Merriment, which means a celebration. It could mean like a gathering. And with the Empress and the obstruction, along with the official person card. So this official person may have caused an obstruction for this Empress in the reverse, which did put an end to her celebration this whatever this official person did. And then she's now also in mental conflict. She's trapped in mental conflict, and she's even trapped in fear, you know, because this official person did bring an obstruction to the celebration and to the merriment that she, once had. And we also get the Three of Wands in that fourth row, which does speak of, someone's ships coming in. And maybe someone's in mental conflict about somebody's ships coming in. And they're also in mental conflict about this official person bringing somebody's ships in too. Because we did get judgment that was brought upon this courthouse matter, regarding a cornucopia and a Ten of Pentacles. But someone was trying to block, an Empress. Or, I'm assuming that this official person has put an obstruction in this. She's a fake Empress because she's coming out in the reverse and she's caused an obstruction. Her and this official person have caused an obstruction. No, I'm thinking it's the official person that brought the obstruction to the merriment that she once was, celebrating. And it has her in severe mental conflict that her celebration was brought to an end. Because next we do have the Seven of Pentacles coming out in the reverse, which, it depicts in the traditional tarot something that was worked upon. It was something that they were expecting, They were expecting their ships to come in because they did work upon a situation that's going to have them in a hogtie. And it says, necessity is the mother of inventions. And they're going to have to try to they're going to have to be very creative on this next harvest. On this harvest, they're trying to be creative on something that they've been expecting, a harvest that they've been in expectation of. And then we get the Thief card coming out. So they've been trying to take something from someone. And they didn't even work upon this situation. And it's going to get them caught up into it like an illegal situation, A legal situation is what they got themselves caught into, a hogtie. They hogtied themselves from trying to steal something. And they were in expectation of this cornucopia from this courthouse. And they were expecting a triumphant victory also from this courthouse. But the main topic of the spread is them having no protection. All these characters on this spread, because there's a lot of people here. We got a thief, We got an Empress in the reverse. And we got a frenemy. We got a Queen of Wands and a Privileged Lady and a King of Pentacles showing all up. And now we have this older gentleman who's coming out in the reverse, in concern at this very time, at this moment in time. And he's in concern due to something that he was expecting, like I said, a harvest from these crops that did come out in the reverse. And from him trying to take something, he actually got himself caught up, into probably some criminal charges here. And he is in concern. Or he's showing up as not concerned, which is really confusing to me, He's not concerned about a material harvest that we've been speaking of when we got this Ten of Pentacles. Something that he did harvest maybe has him in concern, or that he didn't harvest because he's in the reverse. And then we get the Hermit card coming out in the reverse, which usually the Hermit sheds light on things. But when he's in the reverse, this Hermit is in the dark. He's not able to see. He's not able to see things clear. Just like that one card here said about seeing things clear here in the second row. They couldn't see the judgment that was coming upon them for the things that they harvested and for the things that they worked upon. They weren't able to see clear because they were in expectation of a victory. But instead, they got judgment by way of the court. And I know it gets to sounding like repetitive because it's the same message that keeps coming out practically every day. The exact same message. So nothing has changed. There's still an expectation at this courthouse, and they're still blind to some things that they don't, see clear, which is the fact that there's judgment been called upon this court. This court has been brought, the world has been brought upon this situation by way of the coffin, which has caused them an emotional loss. And it even has them trapped in fear and in mental conflict about this courthouse situation that they were in expectation of. A great victory, a triumphant victory is what they were expecting. And then we get the Seven of Wands coming out again in the very last row, which it did come out as the first card in the first row. So this is really specifically talking about someone's protection, when it doubles back like that in both rows. Someone was protected from this situation, and then we get the Fidelity card that comes out in the reverse. And that speaks of, like loyalty. And there was no loyalty, That's where this protection came in. Is because somebody was betrayed. And then we get the message of there's no bridge without a place on the other side. So they didn't even have anywhere to go. Their bridge was like, collapsed or broken in some type of way, where they could not travel upon this bridge that they had created, And this bridge was due to betrayal, And it did collapse. And they have, it did collapse because of your spiritual protection. And also maybe this collapse was to protect your gift, that they were trying to take and harvest upon. And they were trying to, even, steal your spiritual protection. And then we get the message card coming out in that very last row, meaning that you probably will be getting a message about a gift. And your gift was protected. You see, this message card comes out right with this gift. So that says your gift was protected, because we get this protection card also in that last row. Your gift was being protected because you was betrayed. There was no loyalty, when we're talking about these, privileged ladies, Queen of Wands, King of Pentacles, and even, this Empress in the reverse, And then we get the Power card in the reverse in that last row. Protected from this, from this power. And your protection has stripped someone of their power also, whenever you see that in the reverse. And then we get the Eight of Wands as the very last card with the message of the Knight on it. And that Eight of Wands, it usually speaks of I can't remember what the Eight of Wands were speaking of at this moment, but it has the message of the Knight on it. So something that was done during the day, you know, and it wasn't seen. Something couldn't be seen that was being done during the day also, you know. Someone's coming up as not in concern about this material harvest, about somebody else's material harvest. You know, it has someone concerned, even though they show up like they're not concerned about your material harvest because they show up in the reverse, but they truly are in concern about your material harvest. And they're also in concern about the lack of power that they had regarding this protection. You know, they didn't have any protection. And that's been a repeated message, you know, for the past few weeks. And that eight of wands, it speaks of that the direction. You know, something did change direction.